Good evening. I call to order the regular meeting of the Mayor and Board of Trustees of the Village of Burr Ridge for this Columbus Day, October 14, 2019. Will we be led in the pledge tonight? Trustee Model?
Well, thank you, Mayor Grasso. Listen, last meeting I suggested that it was inappropriate that you keep giving the pledge to your family and your friends, and how you've given it to me. I'm honored to always give the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will do it tonight, but I think we need a policy. It should be school children, it should be veterans, it should be heroes. This is not something to trade among your family or your people for favors. So anyway, with that said, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Francis.
Here.
Trustee Schiappa.
Here.
Trustee Paveza.
Here.
Trustee Snyder.
Yes.
Trustee Mattal. Here. Trustee Model.
Yes.
Mayor Grasso.
Here. Do we need a motion to
Permit
by
I'll make a motion to allow Trustee Snyder to join by telephone.
we get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That passes. There are no presentations and public hearings. The consent agenda, all items listed with an asterisk are considered routine by the village board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda, discussed by the board, open for public comment, and voted upon during this meeting. 5 minutes. A, approval of regular board meeting of September 23, 2019. B, receive and file plan commission meeting of October 7, 2019. C, receive and file economic development committee meeting of October 9, 2019. There are no ordinances tonight. 7, resolutions. B, adoption of resolution approving the preliminary plat of subdivision and subdivision variation for the Mendy subdivision, 6100 South Ranch Street. 8, considerations. D, approval of Plan Commission recommendation for text amendments and special use approvals of the Burr Ridge zoning ordinance for a birthing center in the B1 Business District, Z 07 2019 7000 County Line Road, Wiegand. E, approval of recommendation to award contract for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning HVAC systems maintenance at village facilities to Dynamic Heating and Piping Company of Crestwood, Illinois, in the amount of $13,848.08. F, approval of recommendation to award contract for 2019-2020 bulk road salt purchase to Compass Minerals America, Inc. of Overland Park, Kansas, in the amount of $116,790. And G, approval of vendor list dated October 14, 2019, in the amount of $710,064.17 for all funds, plus $192,944.67 for payroll, for the grand total of $903,008.84, which includes special expenditures of $23,075 to BKD LLP for auditing services and $43,306.09 to Thomas Engineering Group for the 2019 water main replacement project. Can I have a motion for the following items on the consent agenda? 5A, B, C, 7B, and 8, D, E, F, and G.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Schiappa.
Yes.
Trustee Mattal. Yes. Trustee Model.
Yes.
Trustee Francis.
Yes.
Trustee Paveza.
Yes.
Trustee Snyder.
Yes.
6-0.
6-0, the motion passes. Okay, that takes us to resolutions. 7A, consideration of resolution supporting passage of State of Illinois House Bills 3885 and 3888 regarding regulations for ethylene oxide. Doug?
Yes, I'd like Assistant Village Administrator Evan Walter to go over this resolution.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Doug. Again, this is a resolution in support of Illinois House Bills 3885 and 3888. These are two pieces of legislation that have been introduced for the veto session this fall at the General Assembly. Veto session is a short end-of-year session that the legislator has at its discretion to adopt either mandatory trailer language or adopt entirely new language. These have been introduced to help further mitigate the presence of ethylene oxide within the state of Illinois. At the previous meeting, directed staff to continue to work on this matter, even though Sterigenics has been closing, or at least phasing out operations, I should say. These two pieces of legislation very broadly provide for additional phase-outs of ethylene oxide within the state, as well as provide home rule communities with the ability to restrict or prohibit ethylene oxide sterilization operations within their corporate boundaries. So a town like Willowbrook, should this legislation pass, would have that option to effectively ban sterilization operations within their town. Again, this will be going to General Assembly via the fall veto session at the end of the month, and I'll be here to answer any questions you have about this legislation or the process going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. Anybody, any members of the board want to speak to this? Yes.
So should Sterigenics change their mind and decide to reopen, because they were enabled to grant a consent order and a construction permit, these two pieces of legislation would prohibit them from using ethylene oxide in the home rule community and prohibit them from using ethylene oxide after 2021, correct?
That's correct.
So this is additional insurance to protect our residents.
Anyone else? Anyone in the audience like to speak to this resolution? If not, can I get a motion to support passage of the state of Illinois House Bills 3885 and 3888 regarding regulations of ethylene oxide? So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? So that's unanimous, right? 6-0, unanimous, that resolution passes. That takes us to considerations. 8A, consideration of Plan Commission recommendation for an amendment to Plan Unit Development Ordinance number A 8340905 to amend the approved facade elevation of the subject property Z17 2019 582 Village Center Drive, Hassan. Yes, Evan.
Thank you, Mayor. Doug, would you mind bringing up the elevation of the facade? Thank you. This is a recommendation from the Plan Commission that came forth October 7th last week. It is a recommendation to approve a request by Ramsey Hassan, one of the owners of the Village Center, for an amendment to PUD Ordinance A-834-09-05 to amend the facade elevation at 582 Village Center Drive. This is in order to accommodate Sephora, a potential retail tenant at the property. At this time, thank you, Doug. The building is currently a single-story retail property at the Village Center. It's located directly south of Walk and Fire. It is currently located, we'll call it gray, a light gray. The petitioner seeks to amend the approved elevation. The Village Center basically had a master elevation plan throughout the entire property. The petitioner seeks to amend that ordinance, which approved the master elevation facades, to look as you see on the screen before you. It would be basically a white facade with black window panes. There's also a sign before you. The sign was reviewed separately by a sign permit. It's not included in this particular package. The discussion of the application really centered around the appropriateness of painting the facade as well as the street orientation and character. Ultimately, the Plan Commission decided by a 5-to-1 vote that the request was in character with the Village Center. They noted that this particular storefront was unique, having a one-story facade. As you can see, there's nothing above it. There's no second-story office or other use above it, and thus did not really change the character of the facade. There was some residents who spoke in favor of the proposal, while one spoke in opposition. But again, as stated, the Plan Commission ultimately decided through a recommendation that this was in character with the Village Center and recommended approval.
Thank you, Evan. Any members of the board have any questions, comments? Yes.
So Evan, this is being painted, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Yes, so
Petitioner's here to answer more technical questions about that.
So back in 2005, 2006, the Plan Commission, which I was a member of, spent extensive amounts of time reviewing these master elevations that you referred to ensure that all these properties had uniqueness and distinctness, utilized high-quality materials, brick, stone, manufactured stone, cut stone, etc., and to allow for the development to have a unique character. Each storefront, each building front be unique and different, to give it the effect of an established town center over many, many years of its individually built buildings. Now, we've painted
Hampton Social.
Hampton Social, thank you. That's been painted white. This is going to be painted white. We didn't allow painted facades at that time. We didn't allow vinyl siding. We didn't allow cheap materials. We insisted that the developer spend extensive hundreds of thousands of dollars for upscale materials to give this unique feel and this upscale earth tone features that we desired. Now we're whitewashing this building. You can't remove the paint once it's on because this is a porous material and it's absorbed, correct?
Again, the petitioner has more detailed information
Correct.
about the technical specs.
So once we go with this white, this one's going to be painted forever, and that's unfortunate. So just want to make the other trustees aware of that.
Well, the petitioner is here, and the petitioner, I know there was some, I happened to be at the Plan Commission meeting at the time, and I know there was some discussion about a coating or something that might be placed there, but please introduce yourself, give us your address, and see if you can answer the questions, please.
Sure. My name is Adam Fursell. I'm a principal with BRVC Owner, LLC, the owner of the shopping center. I'm located at 200 South Wacker, Chicago, Illinois. So, a little background to put this in context. Our leasing agent, Dan Pollard, has been working on trying to attract Sephora in particular to this development for 10 years. They are one of the most iconic retailers in the world. They have 2,600 locations. They are owned by Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy, based in Paris, France. They're an international company, and they had a huge list of requirements to come to this project. We are absolutely thrilled that they're willing to take the leap to come here. That came with a lot of conditions. And one of the conditions is that they want to paint their storefront white and black to match their brand standards. And it's very important to them, their branding, their identity. With all the obstacles here, it's very important for them. We did push back on them. We did, tell them that we prefer it not to be painted, and they had to have this. And it's, again, it's very important to them. So what will happen is that it is a Benjamin Moore paint that is painted on this limestone. You can remove it. You sandblast it, you power wash. It is removable, but they're signing a 30-year lease, so we don't expect this to go away anytime soon. And it's going to be, to correct Evan, the windows aren't black, it's the trim, the frame around the windows that are black, and then the facade itself is white. We don't want to do this all over the place. This is a very specific case. We always review these things on a case-by-case basis. If it wasn't Sephora, that's going to be done in the highest of taste, we wouldn't have considered it. But because it's this special retailer that is going to attract other retailers to come here, it's a real shot in the arm for the development. It's a source of pride. It's going to be excellent to have them come here. So with all that, we'd like you to take that into consideration and answer any other questions you have.
Thank you, Adam. Anybody else with any questions, or did he answer your
Well,
question?
I'm not opposing Sephora. What I'm opposing is the painting of this structure white. The last tenant that came in Hampton Social, they painted theirs white. We're going to be painting the whole place white, and it'll look like, well, it won't look how it was originally intended to look. And I differ with you. Yes, the Benjamin Moore product will come off. It'll come off of other materials, but it won't come off of a porous stone. So I know I've tried to take it off of stone before. So just imagine trying to take graffiti off of something. It doesn't come off. So.
Yes, Al? I'm sorry, were you done again?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Al?
As Guy said, I remember the discussions that were made when the Village Center was going in on how the facades would look. Now, from what you've said, is black and white is their corporate colors?
Yes, it's a brand standard.
And it's only for this particular building or
That's correct.
section?
Correct.
Okay, it's what I thought, I just wanted to go over there.
Right. Just one second, please. Adam, how are you going to handle, if current, other tenants step forward and say, well, we want our colors, we want red, we want pink, we want, maybe that's gonna look beautiful, but you understand some of the, concern,
Sure.
that the board is having right now.
It's in our rules and regulations, it is our standard to not allow the painting of facade. This is a variance, if you want to call it, from ownership, and we review those on a case-by-case basis. We are not marketing, we're not telling anybody that this is something that can be done, we're telling the opposite. But if someone with the likes of a Sephora brand that has to have it as a major deal point, we'll review that. And in this particular case, we think it's a good thing.
And right now, that store is vacant,
It is vacant.
and this is a 30-year lease.
It's a 10-year lease
Okay, with
with
options?
4 5-year options.
So it's a minimum 10 years.
Yes.
Okay. You had a question?
Yes, I did, Mayor, thank you. Personally, I think it's a good idea, and I would vote in favor, but I've complained about donors. The BRVC ownership did donate to my campaign, and while I'm not required to, I will recuse myself from voting on this issue.
Okay. Anything else?
I think Sephora brings a lot of traffic, and it's like 50% of the population, all women will probably venture in there, so I think it's a great store, and I think if we have to accommodate to them, I think it's worth having Sephora in our mall.
Joe, did you want to make, I can't tell if you have your hand up or not, so I'm not sure.
I got my hand up. I
Opportunity to
I do think it's a great idea having Sephora in there.
Can you speak up a little, Joe? It's just hard to hear.
Okay, I can appreciate what Guy is saying about the white and everything like that, but at the same token, it's just with the traffic for the village, and right now, I think it was best.
I think he's in favor of it. Okay, yes?
So I want to echo Trustee Francis's concerns, in fact that we're going to change the facade again. I do want to support the Village Center and bring more tenants there, but what we tell people and what we do are two different things. So, making sure that we have, Sephora's got the legs to sign a 10-year lease with 4 or 5-year options. I mean, that's something that we should keep in mind when someone else comes to you to change their facade to a red or burgundy or blue or something. But I support the Village Center, and it is a beautiful brand, and it works well in this community.
Thank you.
And then I think you've got to do what you, at this point, have to do to get that Village Center leased. Certainly I did my research through my wife and my daughter, and I understand that this is a very high-quality company. Many things have changed since we started this process, and I know the challenge that you're under. And I think one thing this board wants to make clear to you, though, and I would too, is that if it's approved tonight, that doesn't mean the next time you come here with a similar request that it gets approved. We don't want to set any precedents. We're very strong in not doing that as a board and a village. And so you understand that just like you are making an exception, the board may be making an exception if it approves this tonight.
Understood.
Anybody else at the board level have any questions? Does anybody in the audience have any questions of this or any comment? Okay, can I get a motion?
The motion to direct staff to prepare an ordinance.
Okay, can I get a motion to direct staff to prepare an ordinance to approve recommendation for an amendment to the Plan Unit Development Ordinance A 8340905 to amend the approved facade elevation of the subject property, Z17 2019, 582 Village Center Drive, Hassan.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a second, a third, okay. Roll call, please.
Trustee Mittal?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Trustee Scalpa?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Model?
Recused.
Okay. I don't see the need to recuse, but respect it, so that's 5-0. Motion passes?
Yeah.
Okay, 5-0, motion passes.
There'll be an ordinance on tonight's agenda.
Okay, thank you. Update regarding stereogenics in Willowbrook, Illinois.
I'll handle this.
Yeah, well, the good news, of course, is that it's a very happy update. But
Yes.
go ahead, Doug.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, indeed, on Monday, September 30th, as I'm sure everyone knows, Sterigenics announced that they would no longer pursue opening either of their buildings in Willowbrook. However, staff continues to work on some issues. As Trustee Francis so correctly stated, this was a voluntary action by Sterigenics not to renew their lease, and it's still important for the village to follow and monitor the legislation in Springfield that we previously discussed. So that's one pending action. We continue to engage our lobbyists to monitor that legislation. Second, I would point out that Willowbrook sent a letter to the EPA, Illinois EPA, asking them to monitor the decommissioning of the buildings. There is equipment in the buildings. Presumably, there may be ethylene oxide, I don't know. But Willowbrook is monitoring the decommissioning of the buildings to make sure that's done safely and appropriately. And we will keep you updated on that, as well as on the legislation. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Evan Walters, also present, can answer questions if you have any.
Any comments, Guy?
So we've asked for a schedule as to when this decommissioning will take place. Once we have the schedule in hand, would it be worthwhile continuing any air testing and monitoring? Something to think about.
Yes, something to think about. We'll make note of that and
Okay.
keep it in mind.
Anyone else? Anybody in the audience like to comment? Yes?
Thank you, Mayor. Richard Morton, Lake Ridge Club, resident of Burr Ridge for 30 years. I wasn't going to speak on Sterigenics tonight, but I feel compelled to identify that Gary Grasso, as a DuPage County Commissioner, was early on the scene in November, advocating for eliminating Sterigenics from our community. And for that effort and your continued effort, I'm grateful. The same thing could be said to Mr. Francis, Trustee Francis, Tony Chiappa, and Albert Pavesa. That I think, in my opinion, they also helped get the visibility this issue needed to eliminate Sterigenics from our community. Village Administrator Pollock, along with Evan Walters, wherever he's hiding, were instrumental in making sure this issue stayed visible and Sterigenics is gone from Willowbrook. I hope that the village doesn't believe that the threat from airborne toxics is behind us, because it is not. There are 186 other EPA-identified airborne toxics, and there are also other sources of ethylene oxide that I don't think can be overlooked, including small-scale desktop sterilizers that are in veterinary clinics and other small-scale facilities that may in fact contribute to some of the higher than desirable ambient levels of ethylene oxide. So I want village to stay vigilant. It would be wonderful if at some point after post-shutdown and evacuation of Sterigenics from Willowbrook, we could do another round of ethylene oxide testing and see where the levels are going, determine next steps that the Environmental Quality Commission might undertake. Thank you for letting me take a few minutes of your time, and again, my thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Morton. Anyone else? It should also be noted that the Environmental Quality Commission and the members thereof played just as big a role as anybody else in the village of Burr Ridge. And so I thank them for their service on this issue and their continuing service to the residents of Burr Ridge. I also happily will announce that I will be having this update removed from the agenda. because I don't see a need to continue it anymore. However, should a trustee or any resident want it back on the agenda, of course, that will happen. If anything happens positive or negative, and we will keep you apprised of the decommissioning efforts, and we will also tell you anything of substance that happens during the veto session. First one being October 28th? October 28th. It's that week, and then the second or third week of November. Okay, that'll take us, unless there's any further comment, that'll take us to 8C, an update regarding village review of Illinois Recreational Cannabis and Tax Act. I don't know which way to start. Should I start with you?
I'll start over here. Thank you, Mayor. I will kind of go over the process we've already engaged in, the process that moving forward, and then I would ask Evan Walter to give a summary of the Plan Commission and Economic Development Commission reports, and then I will provide a couple of concluding staff comments. So the process to date is, as all of you are aware, in June of this year, the governor signed legislation legalizing the recreational use and possession of cannabis in the state of Illinois. The legislation also included options for local municipalities to opt in or opt out of allowing cannabis businesses within their municipalities. On July 22nd, we first presented this to the board. Staff presented an overview of the legislation. No action was taken by the board, but Mayor Grasso encouraged residents and the board to speak up and make people aware of it, comment on it, provide trustees or staff or the mayor any comments they may have. On August 26th, we revisited the issue with the Board of Trustees. At that time, the board directed the Plan Commission and the Economic Development Commission to review the issues related to their jurisdictions, zoning for the Plan Commission, economic impacts for the Economic Development Commission, and to provide a report to the village board. On September 23rd, we, village staff, provided an update on the communications or community engagement plan, informing the board how we were notifying residents, how we're using social media, our website, Plan Commission notices, et cetera, to inform the public about discussions and considerations both at the Economic Development Plan Commission and village board levels. On October 7th, the Plan Commission held a public hearing. Evan will give you a summary of that in a few minutes. And October 9th, last Wednesday, the Economic Development Committee discussed the economic impact of cannabis businesses in Burr Ridge. Then tonight, we have discussion by the board and any further direction the board may want to provide. However you proceed from here, there will be a need to have a second Plan Commission public hearing and also further additional action by the board to either approve zoning for cannabis businesses or to opt out of the ordinances. And I will conclude that after Evan makes a presentation on the Plan Commission and Economic Development Committee.
Thank you. So in your packets, you were provided a copy of the staff report for both the Plan Commission and the EDC. In that, you should have seen all the information that they were privy to. Just to summarize the, not necessarily recommendations, but the opinions of either body, the Plan Commission concluded that any cannabis business such as this should be a special use. There was very broad consensus on that. Not really any disagreement on that regard. So special uses over permitted uses. Special uses, of course, require public hearings to ultimately be approved, such as we've seen tonight. There was consensus that such uses would be best listed in the manufacturing districts. That's the LI, the GI, and the research assembly districts. There was also limited support for a special use listing in the business district. So that's B1, B2, generally our downtown retail quarters. There was even some objection to that. So it was brought up by one or two Plan Commissioners, but overall there was some real objection to that concept. Other uses such as the craft growers, the cultivation centers, the infusers, things of that nature were generally seen as inappropriate in any element of the village. even as a special use. If they did need to be included in a dispensary, they would need to be riders to a dispensary. So you could not get a transporter license in the village without a dispensary license first. So you couldn't just operate a transporting license without that initial business. The Plan Commission also floated the idea of an overlay district in the village. An overlay district is basically a custom zoning district, for lack of a better word. So there was a lot of discussion about placing this type of use away from the downtown and more toward one of our arterials, such as Route 83. And so for an example, they might say a manufacturing district south or north of a road, just as a very broad example, not to use any specifics. But they did say that they envisioned or could envision some sort of specific zoning, such as an overlay district. So that is the Planning Commission's general advice to the board. On October 9th, the EDC held a public meeting to discuss the economic impacts of cannabis on the village. The discussion generally centered around the tax rate and the revenue projections, and they did feel that the revenue projections for dispensaries justified their location within the village, to say nothing about where they should go per se. But at the same time, the EDC also felt that a dispensary, only a dispensary, would be better suited to be located on an arterial such as Route 83. So there's some congruence between the two bodies in that regard. That's the general conclusion that both bodies had given. Again, I'll be here to answer questions as Doug will.
Okay, let's start with the trustee. Yes.
Just wanted to summarize one more thing. So after consulting with Attorney Durkin on the process here, it's a little bit different from what I described in this written staff report. So either way, for the village to proceed, opting in or opting out, it needs to go back to the Planning Commission for a public hearing. And because the opt-out clause would be in the zoning ordinance. That was a mistake on my part. I thought it could be outside the zoning ordinance, but we want to make sure no matter how we go, we're following best legal practices. So so it will need to go back to the Plan Commission, so direction will have to be provided one way or another in that regard. It's also suggested by Trustee Francis that perhaps a separate town hall meeting might be appropriate, and that could be direction you provide as well. If that's the case, then I would suggest next Monday, October 21st, simply because in order to meet the January 1st deadline, which really is December 9th, unless we have a special meeting in December, we need to get a legal notice into the paper, have the Plan Commission hold that public hearing, and then bring it back to the board. And to do that, we need to have a legal notice published by a week from Friday, correct, Evan?
So the legal notices are sent out on Friday, but they're published the Thursday after. So I need to have it in the paper 15 days before a meeting, which means I need to get it in the paper this Friday, October 25th. Next Friday, October 25th, I'm sorry. Yes, next Friday.
Right, so we could have if the board wishes to do so, we could have a town hall meeting Monday and still get the notice out one way or the other. It's also my understanding, and we're also speaking to the lawyers, but I want to make sure the lawyer, Mr. Durkin, agrees. The board has to take an action. If the board does not act, then it becomes a permitted use.
It's a non-enumerated use, and then it's
January 1.
Yes.
Right. So if we're going to opt in and we want to set rules, or if we're going to opt out, the board has to do something. Otherwise, if there is no action, it becomes a permitted use, which is a lot lower barrier than a special use. So this is important that we continue to have this discussion and come to some conclusion at the board level. So let's, with that, anything else you want to point out?
Well, it's essential that the board take some zoning action before January 1st, either to prohibit or to regulate this activity. It becomes legal, it's a legal activity after January 1st, and if you don't address it in your zoning ordinance, then it's a non-enumerated use, and you could face challenges from applicants that seek to locate in a district where it's not prohibited. So I know your Planning Commission and EDC have been acting as sounding boards, but ultimately corporate authorities, you folks here, are going to have to apply for a zoning text amendment to either prohibit these uses in the village or to allow them most likely as special uses in what districts you determine to have those businesses located in. At Plan Commission meeting, last scheduled meeting, in time for you to adopt this within the deadline of your regular board meetings would be a November 18th Plan Commission meeting. As Evan said, you got to get that notice in the paper by the 25th of October. Your next village board meeting is the 28th. So if you have this public forum, you still need to provide direction to staff. I think staff can get a general sense of what's happening with that without you coming back together until the 28th. But at least a notice has to be published in the paper for that timely notice for that November 18th meeting. So you're getting down to the point where you have to make a decision one way or the other.
Right, and so obviously the legislature has given all municipalities a very tight window on this issue. So given the schedule, the board would likely come to a decision either at the November 25th board meeting or at the latest December 9th. We are not planning on having a board meeting on December 23rd. So those are your two dates to focus on, November 25th, or the last night would be December 9th. Okay. Does anybody, any of the trustees right now have any comments or have any questions? If not, yes, go ahead, Guy.
Thank you, Mr. Walter, Mr. Pollack, Mayor, Mr. Durkin, for your summaries. I think it's an important distinction needs to be made about the mission of the Plan Commission with regards to this topic. The Plan Commission was directed to look at the land use for this, for cannabis dispensaries, transporters, refiners, whatever, craft growers, if the board were to approve cannabis retail sales in the village, what would the appropriate land use be? Not are they in favor of it or are they against it, but if the board was to approve it, where should these businesses be located? That's a very important distinction. Second, I was suggesting a town hall meeting so that we could all meet as a board and as a village. We could focus on this issue. Tonight we're dealing with Sterigenics, we're dealing with the village center, we're dealing with other topics, and we're trying to cram this cannabis stuff in the meeting as well. We had a town hall meeting, we could focus on that, we get some safety experts in here, we could hear from our police chief, we could hear from other folks about and listen to the residents' comments and give them the opportunity to speak at length if they would desire and not be worried about the time limit. So,
sure, I think it's certainly a good idea. Anybody else at the board level? Yes, Anita?
I do think that we do need to do our due diligence and see what the ramifications of opting in would be versus opting out and what the advantages would be. I feel that Burr Ridge is a very special place, and we want people on I-55 and Route 83 visiting us, but it should not be a pot stop. I mean, it should be a pit stop, not a pot stop.
Pit stop, not a pot stop.
Okay. So really, we have to be very careful about our village's image, and we have to tread very carefully.
Sure. Yes, Al?
When I was going over the Plan Commission's discussions and everything else, I thought that they hit on it pretty good where it looked like, anyway, from my interpretation, maybe that's not what they meant, that if we did opt in, the village center would be out, it would be in one of our commercial or industrial areas that we would allow it.
Yeah, I think that in summary, I was at both, is exactly that. It seems no one has any strong desire to have it in the downtown area. That includes the village center, County Line Square, or in our downtown. If passed and if opted in, it appeared the consensus both at the Economic Development Committee and at the Plan Commission was to have it outside of those areas, and so at least there was some consensus between the two boards in that sense. So that's probably the framework of the discussion. Is there anyone, and we have a nice crowd here tonight, is there anyone here that would like to speak on this subject? Ladies first. First lady's hand up.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jennifer McConaughey. I live at 475 87th Street. I would like to highlight a few sentences from the Burr Ridge Community Vision Statement. Our village accommodates residents who seek a sense of privacy in a tranquil environment. We desire to enhance the village's physical boundary, keeping Burr Ridge a very special place. I came here tonight to ask the board to carefully consider how allowing the sale of cannabis in Burr Ridge would fit within this vision. In my opinion, Burr Ridge is dealing with a bit of a tarnished reputation. Issues such as stereogenics, hostility within high school districts, and depressed housing prices are impacting our village. I feel that allowing cannabis sales in Burr Ridge would further push young families, the lifeblood of any community, to other nearby towns. Towns like LaGrange, Hinsdale, and Clarendon Hills have attractive downtowns, libraries, and schools with seemingly less bitterness towards one another. And based on my research, they're on the paths to be banning sales within their boundaries. I really don't want Burr Ridge to be one of the test sites for this new law in Illinois. I don't want Burr Ridge to divert energy and expenses on how to maintain safety and regulation. Burr Ridge doesn't allow video gambling and adult entertainment businesses, and I consider this to be under the same umbrella. I ask the board to make their decision based on the values and the vision for the future of Burr Ridge residents and potential residents. Please do not make this decision based on perceived unknown economic gain. I'm asking the village to opt out of this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Rifat Abdul Malik. I live in Highland Fields. I have been here over 15 years, but I also here speaking on behalf of our church, the St. Mark Coptic Church in the area, where we have a lot of residents in this area. I should congratulate the lady on her excellent presentation. My question was, how about our neighboring villages? Are they opting out? And if so, are we going to be the place to attract the sale, to attract everybody that wants to use this material, which is really would be contrary to the values that we as a village have and we as a church have. So our invitation to the board is to really not to complicate everybody's life with having open meetings and things like that. I think it's in the board vision is what's so important, because you are elected to represent everybody. So we are asking you to take the decision to opt out of anything to do with this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, former Mayor Mickey Straub.
Evening, board. It took a lot to get me out of retirement from politics, okay? But tonight's subject was very important to me. So I wanted to first, I'd like to thank you all for your service. I know what you go through. I love you guys, and frankly, I helped 6 out of 7 of you get elected, so I take what you do kind of personally. I know the amount of work and responsibility lays on your shoulders, but I also know that how tempting it must be to go for what looks like easy money. Now, I came here tonight just to go on record as the former mayor, is strongly opposing any motion of this, anything from forward of tonight, if possible. For the distribution of recreational marijuana, pot, weed, whatever you want to call it, however, it's cleverly called now cannabis, so it doesn't sound quite as bad, within the village of Burr Ridge. My hope is that the village and the board are not seriously considering it. You know, my hope is that you're just looking for reasons to say no, to just say no. Now, I know that some of you might be, considering the options for it, but I believe that it's bad for the village for 3 reasons. Number one, I think it's bad for the Burr Ridge brand. This is a reputation that every one of you have sought to protect for the last 63 years, and it could go up in smoke, pun intended. And any economic benefit from the sale of pot would be offset by increased police costs and lost revenue from adversely affecting our image and the businesses. I don't see the huge economic benefit. I think it would be definitely offset by a lot of that. I also believe it would be bad for our kids. Not only because of an impact on our property values, as the young woman just mentioned, but because our own DuPage County coroner, Rich Jorgensen, just described marijuana last week as a gateway drug, as a speech that he did at the Chamber of Commerce regarding our current opioid epidemic, which I know the mayor was very involved in on the board. And I also believe that several police associations are very concerned about it. I'm going from what I've heard and what I've read. I believe it would be bad for our safety and would also attract a far worse element than the movie theater ever could have. Now think about that. And frankly, we don't even allow billboards. And many residents don't want a gas station in Burr Ridge because they don't want to get too much traffic or be kind of found out what a great place this is. You grab too much attention to get the wrong visitors to our town. When I was mayor, that was a hot topic. And we wouldn't even allow a gas station. So I can't believe it's even being even considered. So I hope you're looking for a reason to say no. I'm shocked that any of you would seriously consider it. The majority of residents would ever consider selling pot would be approved. I also like to remind you about when they had, remember when the lottery got passed? They said, okay, we're going to use all this money for the schools, they're going to be great. And then they said, oh yeah, we're going to approve, gaming and riverboat gambling. All the schools, all the money's going to schools. It's going to be great. I think that goes along the line of as soon as the tollway's paid off, we're going to make it free, right? And years later, it's just amazing. It's not worked out very well. And I know now some of these desperate officials and politicians in Illinois are making some other promises to us about marijuana for similar reasons. And I think only the more desperate villages are probably going to reach for it. I'm a little surprised, frankly, that knowing how many people didn't want to listen to certain government officials and reports regarding stereogenics, and you always have a little suspicion about government. Now we're going to believe Illinois about this. It's just beyond me. As a dear friend of mine and former federal investigator, Linda Long, just told me this week, she said, she's in California, where I actually moved here from California. I was an investigator with her at the time. Her quote was, "It hasn't worked very well in California. The legal marijuana costs much more than the cheaper stuff. So sales projections and tax revenue have not materialized." And she put in parentheses, typical government. And by legalizing, there are many more people driving stone than ever before. And I don't know. The mayor, board trustees, most people don't drink alcohol to get drunk, but they smoke marijuana to get high. That concerns me, and I know it's not going to affect it that much here, but this is not a pretty picture for Illinois. I just hope that some of the blood that might be splattered won't be responsible on anybody's hands in this town. I see only 3 reasons why you would approve it. Or move any further, and I call desperation, greed, or laziness, not wanting to find other tax revenues but you pick. I would ask you to, let's keep Burr Ridge a very special place, and just say no.
Anyone else? Yvonne?
Yvonne Mayer, a Burr Ridge resident. I want to thank the prior speakers, in particular former mayor, for getting up here and basically expressing dismay that this is even on the table, even though legally you are required to make a decision. I'm all for opting out, and if there's a town hall meeting, I'll come and present more reasons. I've attended the last couple committee meetings. I've expressed my opinion at those meetings. I would ask tonight, we were under the impression, community members, that tonight you had the ability to opt out. Now I understand there's a different process. I think you need to get the word out more effectively to the community, letting them know exactly when there are going to be meetings, when the decisions are going to be made. But tonight, I would ask that before you adjourn, even if you can't make a decision, that you at least take a straw poll of the position of each one of you, because I think the community needs to know if there is a risk that there will be a majority who would want to opt in. And, if there isn't, I think we will all go home feeling a little better tonight. So that's my request for tonight.
Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Catherine Greenspan. I live on Elm Street in Burr Ridge. I did express my feelings at the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I appreciate that they gave us the floor to do so. I'm not sure that a town hall only in the Planning and Zoning Committee under their umbrella is appropriate. I think that the community deserves multiple town halls. We also deserve to hear from experts that have gone before us, that have compiled crime statistics. My greatest concern with regards to legalizing marijuana dispensaries in Burr Ridge is, in fact, it will make us not necessarily the special place that we moved into. And also, I've been told that maybe a lot of the reasons are economic driven. So let's just assume, for simple math, that they're realizing $1 million in sales a year at 3%, and 10,800 residents, which is the statistic that I was able to find, we would realize only $2.78 per resident. I do not believe that $2.78 per resident is enough to saddle our municipality, our special place, with legalized marijuana dispensary in perpetuity, because we all know once they're here, it's terribly difficult to get them to leave. I also would like for you to consider that the statistics that have been put out by the government suggest that $1 realized in tax revenue per municipality results in $4.50 spent. And it's spent on law enforcement, it's spent on more EMTs, it's spent on traffic crashes, all of those things. And you can actually, I did send an email to the trustees and the mayor with regards to having Bob Berlin come in and talk. He gave a talk to Clarendon Hills, and he's spoken to many in our county. I did receive a response from Trustee Model and nobody else. I would greatly appreciate the opportunity for the community to hear from Bob Berlin and how he feels, because he is our #1 law enforcement agent in our county. He has quite a wealth of expertise, and he's dialed into other counties in the state as well as the nation, and we should hear from him. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Rich, just 1 second. Go ahead. Do you want to come up? No, you need to come up just because we need to hear from you from the microphone, and please identify yourself.
Well, respected members, I mean, it's really great. I've been a Burridge resident for about 35 plus years here.
Name?
Kamal Dutt. I live on Deer Path Trail, right? And I was also under the impression that today was one of those meetings where decisions were going to be made. I did not know about the prior meetings. And like the speakers before me have said, that I think if you're going to have a town hall meeting, the word has got to get out so people get motivated. I sent several emails to some of my friends who are here also. And basically, Burridge is a very special place. 35 years ago, and even today, I remember when the theaters were coming. You know, the hue and cry, we got Lifetime, and we got this beautiful shopping center. The mere fact, even a brand like Sephora, which is owned by Louis Vuitton, is thinking of coming to Burridge is great. It speaks volumes for Burridge. And I don't think putting a pot shop here does anything for the village image. Doesn't do anything. You know, the few dollars that you gather there, not worth it. I mean, you don't have video gambling, you don't have slots, you don't even have a hookah lounge. And now you want to put a, I'm just saying that the village was against that. Now you guys are considering putting a pot shop. So that's my opinion. And I kind of agree with all the speakers who said that. But thank you very much, and hopefully you'll keep Burridge the way it was intended. Thank you all.
Anyone else? Yes, Rich.
Good evening again, Richard Morton. The previous speakers, I think, have said pretty much how I feel. But I do want to add one dimension to make sure it's very clear. I grew up in the 1960s, and marijuana and drugs were prevalent in my high school. I've seen it firsthand. I choose to neither drink or smoke pot. It's a personal choice, and I have no bias to those that partake. But I did learn something through the 14-month-long adventure with Sterigenics, in that I was associated with about 21 researchers, PhDs, chemical engineers, scientists, MDs, psychologists, all high-income people that were young mothers that located to Burr Ridge because Burr Ridge is a special place. Well, through my involvement, I've learned that young mothers are an extremely powerful force. And I caution anyone that wants to cross them and the risks that would imperil the village. And so that's my message to you, that whatever decision you make, which is difficult, and there are pressures for yay and nay, that you be aware that there is a very motivated community that will let you know how they feel about the decision. So I wish you all well in your deliberations, and I know you'll make the right decision.
Thanks, Rich. And I can assure you, Rich, that not so young mothers are also very persuasive.
I would agree.
Anyone else?
Hello, everyone. My name is John Maltese, former resident of Burr Ridge, currently live in Willowbrook. This is Spencer Hoffman, my associate, also a former resident of Burr Ridge. My other associates tonight, you guys can please stand up. Andrew Skinner, Jason Crowley. And tonight, with the board's approval, we would be seeking possibly submitting an application for a dispensary. That being said, we brought Joe Wright with us tonight. Joe's here to answer any questions you might have or concerns that the audience might have about doing so. Joe? Sure.
Mayor Grasso, fellow trustees, thank you for this opportunity to come here and speak with you all today. I had the opportunity to speak before the Economic Development Commission last week. I had a great conversation with them and was able to talk about a lot of very substantive issues.
I think you mean the Planning Commission.
Yes, of course. The reason why I'm speaking here today is because I'm working here with these gentlemen, known as the Hummingbird Group, who are interested in seeking a dispensary license here in Burr Ridge, helping them through the licensing and application process. And I'm here to do that, I'm here with them, because I myself have some experience in this sector, in this world. Primarily consider myself a government guy by background. The majority of my career has been spent working directly in government at every state, or excuse me, every level, federal, state, and local. including in the General Counsel's Office for the City of Des Plaines, so I know a lot of these issues intimately. I'm an attorney by training, and I've worked for Governor Rauner in the General Counsel's Office for Governor Rauner. During that time, I worked on a lot of legal issues related to the medical cannabis program. And in 2015, I was appointed by the governor to be the first director of Illinois' medical cannabis program. In that role, I oversaw the entire program. I had executive regulatory authority over all the agencies that regulated the program. I personally inspected a number of dispensaries and cultivation centers here in Illinois throughout the state. I helped regulators in other states as well too develop policy. I amended the act that created the medical cannabis program that also extended it as well. I created a number of policies and procedures that are still used today in the state of Illinois by the medical cannabis program and will be used by the recreational program as well too. And I'm here to speak to you directly about my experience during that time dealing with these entities, some of which are seeking recreational licenses, some of which will be new to this sector as well. And I'd like to, first, of course, respect everyone's opinion on this. I understand that it's deeply held and that there's some very serious opinions on both sides. I do want to talk a little bit about some of the reality, though, and not simply things that make us scared. Specifically, I want to talk about my experience dealing with dispensaries in the state of Illinois. In that regard, what I'd like to say is that every single one of them has been a great actor in their community. Every single one of them has abided by rules and regulations that are the most strict in the United States. The Illinois regulatory program for cannabis is, in fact, the strictest in the United States, and the entire East Coast that has adopted medical cannabis or recreational cannabis since that time has followed in Illinois' wake and followed what is now essentially called the Illinois model. I was with this model, this program from day one, before the time there was a single plant growing in Illinois, before the time that there was a single dispensary operating here. And I'd like to point out a couple things that have happened recently. There's multiple cities, every city across the state right now is dealing with the same issues that you are right now. And I'd like to just direct you to a couple things that have been made public in the past few months, past few weeks, as this has happened. Most recently, in the city of Rolling Meadows, the mayor and the police chief both spoke favorably in public at a city council meeting about an existing dispensary that has been operating since 2015 called Nature's Care, and they specifically called them out as being great corporate community actors. They worked intimately with the police force and with the city, and are currently helping them write the ordinance right now that will regulate recreational cannabis in Rolling Meadows. In the city of Schaumburg, there's a company called PharmaCann, a very large company that has multiple dispensaries in Illinois and 2 cultivation centers here as well too. And the city of Schaumburg levied a special fee upon them for high-risk ventures, right? This was levied ahead of time in expectation that there would be increased emergency calls around the dispensary. During the time that they've been operational, they've in fact received no emergency calls whatsoever and refunded that money directly back to PharmaCann. These are some examples of the actors that currently exist in Illinois and will exist in Illinois as this goes on. The recreational program here follows the exact same rules that will be required of the medical dispensaries, which again are the strictest in the nation. They require complete security, often more than a bank. There's complete security of cameras on the outside of the facility. Every single square inch of the outside of the facility has to be covered and recorded by high-definition video, as well as any area inside of the facility as well, too. All this video is directly accessible by the state of Illinois. All inventory of every cannabis product in the state of Illinois, whether it's medical or recreational, has to be tracked down to the specific product, meaning the actual item that goes into your hand, that's all barcoded and stamped and kept live in an inventory database that is accessible by the state of Illinois in real time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. These gentlemen here, in my discussions with them, have told me that the dispensary that they plan on putting here will not look like a head shop, will not look like a Colorado or California pot shop. That's not what's going to be happening here. And the state of Illinois also doesn't allow that as well, too. There's specific restrictions on branding that can be used, specific restrictions on signage that prevents the use of the cannabis leaf or any kind of associated paraphernalia or imagery. It will look like a modern facility that can fit in place with a Sephora, for example, and be on the same exact standards of aesthetics and quality. The people that work there will be highly educated and certified in the cannabis dispensary process, to do this with the latest education that can be provided to individuals in this industry. And from a standpoint of operations, I personally have never found any licensee in the state of Illinois, whether they're a cultivator or a dispensary, to be a security risk. And I know that because I was the head regulator for that program. And we never prosecuted a single one of them for anything that involved security. There's never been a single incidence of theft occurring at any dispensary or cultivation center. There's never been a single reported instance of diversion internally. And there's never been any problems at all whatsoever with break-ins, thefts, robberies, or anything along those lines. Now, again, I understand this is a very deeply held issue, and I respect all of that. But I want to remind the trustees here, as well as the mayor, that we're not talking about the legalization of cannabis. That's been decided by the state legislature. The state has already decided that this will happen, which means that anyone in Burr Ridge or anyone in the surrounding communities has a legal right to possess and use cannabis. What we're talking about today here is, of course, whether they should be able to receive business licenses in the city of Burr Ridge. And to that, what I can say to you is I can only rely on my own experience, which is informed by my time here in Illinois, to tell you that I do not perceive this process to be something that would create a security risk whatsoever. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, respond to any concerns that you may have. If anyone from the audience has anything that they're concerned about, I can try to address that as best as I can, point by point.
Let me ask you a question, it's probably on everybody's mind. Why Burr Ridge?
Well, I can't speak to that directly. Maybe the principals of the company can.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, 3/4 of us were raised here. We're from the community, our parents still live here. We believe Burr Ridge is a beautiful place to live. I'm actually myself currently trying to find a home to move back to Burr Ridge with my family.
There's lots of them for sale.
I see that. Probably getting rid of mine first. That being said, I love Burr Ridge. I could see myself and my family here for many years to come. I've been here for over 30 years myself, along with my friends and my family, and I think that Burr Ridge is a town that is well educated and educated enough to handle something like this. The fact that our surrounding communities are not so interested really only speaks to the fact that they perhaps aren't as educated as the Burr Ridge, especially, I'm sorry, I gotta point out Evan here, has been a wealth of knowledge as far as starting to learn about this process and what has been going on in the state of Illinois. That being said, these other surrounding communities that do opt out does offer an additional economic benefit. I know that's been talked on a little bit tonight, but it is a big deal for Burr Ridge. Burr Ridge does stand to financially benefit from this, and the fact that other surrounding communities around us are not going to do it would increase the possible tax revenue you would get. The numbers that were thrown out here, I cannot speak to specifically. I know Joe has some better projections in mind that he could speak about, but roughly we're seeing that a recreational dispensary could bring in close to $500,000 per community in tax revenue. I forgot, I'm sorry, how many residents there currently are, but I could be rest assured that that is going to be way more than just $2 per citizen. Of course, that stands to be seen, but that being said, that is really why I want to be in Burr Ridge.
Okay. Anybody have any questions of anyone at this point? Catherine? You want to address a question to the board?
My name is Joseph Wright.
So you can, just so people can hear, why don't you state your questions and then you can sit down
That's
and
okay.
then we'll give the answer.
I don't have to say my name again.
Huh?
I don't have to like sign it, or Catherine Greenspan, Burr Ridge.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so I appreciate your knowledge and your expertise in that, very much so, because there aren't a lot of what I would say legislators or legal experts in this field because it's so new. To the best of my knowledge, Illinois is in fact the first legislature to push this type of legislation through. Is that correct?
Illinois is the first state to pass a recreational cannabis program by a legislature. That's right. Yeah.
Right. So, just to the trustees and the mayor, I just want you to realize that our state is the first. So we are, in fact, kind of treading on new territory. Would you agree? In terms of it, the state legislature putting the rules out for the municipalities and passing actual legislation with regards to legalizing recreational cannabis.
Yeah, sure, it's the first legislature to do so, but this is really not different than what several other states have already done.
Like Colorado and Oregon?
We're talking about the procedural mechanisms, but what's happening now with Illinois is the same thing that happened in Michigan recently, and it's happened in 12 other states to date. There's really no difference. It's just how we got from A to B.
Yeah, so we don't have a lot of statistics from Michigan yet, necessarily, crime statistics or even the revenues. To suggest that that it's possible that we would raise, the village would realize $500,000 in revenue, tax revenue, from one marijuana dispensary. Pardon my French, but holy crap, that's a lot of sales you're anticipating, yes?
Well, there's a 3% maximum tax that can be applied by any municipality, which will go directly back to the municipality. How much is received is directly dependent upon how much is sold at the dispensary level.
So we're talking like volume, like mass volume, more volume than say, what did you compare, Sephora? Probably, because I think it would be hard to realize that Sephora, I would be thrilled, as we all would, right?
Okay, but let's wrap it up.
So my whole point is this. If they're gonna be generating that much sales, then we are in fact gonna realize a lot more traffic. Crime statistics will possibly go up based upon the other states that already have gathered these statistics, as well as our cost as a municipality to support or not support, all of the things going on, right? And I would suggest that this medical or marijuana dispensary is not at all the same as Sephora. We surely are not comparing a lip gloss to a blunt, are we? I mean, that's a ludicrous comparison, right?
Thank you. Wait, I'll tell you, let's let them finish up, and then, of course, if anybody else wants to say anything, we'll let you do that, of course.
Sure.
So we kind of have a 5-minute rule here, but there's been some interchange, so if you guys want to just sum up, then we can move on, okay?
Of course. So, again, I think the point that I want to make here today is that the state of Illinois has already decided that cannabis will exist here in the state legally. People in Burr Ridge have the legal right to possess it on January 1 and use it. There's nothing you can do to change that at this point in time. We're simply talking about business licensing. And in that regard, all of the business licenses that have been given to cannabis businesses in Illinois have done an exceptional job across the board, meeting extremely strict standards. The state has put in place requirements that go above and beyond almost any industry that exists, even above what's required for banks. So it's essentially the similar requirements that are required for nuclear facilities in terms of security and product handling. I'd also point out that having a legal supply of this product is in fact, from a public health standpoint, better off. This is undeniable because the products that are sold in the state of Illinois have to be tested before they're sold. Every single product that hits the shelf must be tested for its purity, as well as any contaminants that may exist in it. The Illinois system is the strictest in the nation, it has the lowest tolerance for failure in terms of what the testing is, and everything has to be labeled completely before it hits the shelf, and consumers have an absolute right to know what's in that before they get it, and they can rely on this because it's been completely closed loop in terms of where it's come from and how it got here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, now, let's see, some people have already spoken. Who is next? Product.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make simple comment and.
You have to, even though.
I didn't say I am Father Samuel, the pastor of St. Mark on 79th Street. I just have a simple comment and some logical fact. The simple comment, for health reasons, there are big resistance against just smoking. So how we want to facilitate using marijuana? Doesn't make sense. The other thing, there are so many bad effects of marijuanas on especially young people and youth. So when we make it easy to get it for them, this will make it very bad effect on our area. So we don't need that. This is our recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you.
listening to me. My name is Salil Doshi. I live on Grant Court. I've been a Burr Ridge resident for the last 10 years. I'm going to come at this from a little bit of a different side, too. I'm also a physician. And so I can see, looking at how things have happened during my career, I've been practicing for 21 years, looking at what's happening with the opioid epidemic. Narcotics have been around for a long, long time. What changed in our field was that there was a decision that somebody made saying, you know what, people shouldn't have pain. We came up with a fifth vital sign, pain. So the idea was to eliminate all of pain. So what happens? We start pushing pain medications. Now people are saying people are being hooked on narcotics because of what physicians and medical care. And maybe that's very true. So by looking at this saying, well, you know, we've made a lot of mistakes along the way. Narcotics have probably become very, very prevalent because of the way somebody decided to prescribe them. Vaping, another issue. I think if you're going to look at this in a few years, we're going to say we made a huge mistake with this. We have an opportunity to not make a mistake with this. Cannabis is a gateway drug. It's more powerful than it used to be. The ones that are sold in the stores, I agree, have to be regulated, but that doesn't mean that that's going to be what happens on the street. According, again, what these fellows had discussed is true. By law, these dispensaries are legal, but we have a decision to make, and we have the right to choose that this does not happen in our community. Thank you.
Anyone else? Sure.
Thank you. I'll just take one brief moment. I just wanted to rebut a couple things that the gentleman came up here and said. You know, I take offense when people who are actually outsiders, who are not here as residents. In fact, there's been no resident tonight who stepped up here in support of opening a dispensary. I think that needs to be very clear to everybody. The people that stepped up in support of it are paid lobbyists and the outsiders who are not Burr Ridge residents currently, who want to open up a store, and they want to open up the store for profit. And for them to say it will fit in with Sephora, I mean, I'm sorry, you cannot begin to make those comparisons and do it with a straight face. I mean, we're not stupid people in this community. A pot shop is very different than a high-end retailer of, you know, I mean, it's really disturbing to me. And then for them to make comparisons to the medical marijuana dispensaries that have been legal in Illinois and say there haven't been problems. Well, a different element, to use that phrase, will come to a pot shop to buy recreational marijuana than somebody who's had to get a medical prescription to purchase marijuana. So there are big differences. They can't compare what's going to happen with the recreational shop to what's occurred or hasn't occurred with the medical dispensaries. Thank you.
Okay, unless there's someone else, don't forget the board has to make a decision, and the board has indicated to a person that it wants to be fully informed before making this decision. So the fact that there is a debate, the fact that the trustees have questions, I think you should take that as good government. They're trying to make a decision, and in an orderly process, as tonight has been an orderly process. There has been some indication that we would want to hear from everybody in the community. I've gotten several emails that said that they didn't know that there was going to be a Plan Commission meeting or an Economic Development Commission meeting or tonight's meeting. So we are trying to get the word out. Is there consensus at the board level tonight? I think I know Mr. Snyder, Trustee Snyder's position. Is there consensus of having a town hall type meeting October 21st?
I'm prepared to rule tonight.
Is that a Saturday?
It's a Monday.
Oh, Monday.
It's in place of the Plan Commission. Do people want to take a straw vote tonight?
I'm with Trustee Scapa, and let's do a straw vote tonight.
I
I didn't hear
She
you.
said she's in favor of taking a straw poll tonight.
For the town hall meeting? Or
No.
for the,
Where we stand on
against the
this.
cannabis sales? Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
We don't have a procedure for a straw vote. Trustee Snyder's not here. He can vote, of course, but I could take as I did at the Economic Development Committee, I could take a paper vote if you want to send me a paper vote. Unless someone wants to make a motion to have an open vote right now. Does everybody feel they've got enough information to make a decision yet?
Yes.
Yes.
You know what's going to have a major impact on the way I vote, and I don't think the information is here today, is how are the 7 surrounding communities? Are they opting in or opting out? Because, you know, under normal conditions, I would opt out, but if everybody else in the area is opting in, I mean, all them people are going to be in Burr Ridge smoking anyway, so, you know, I have a problem with that. If we're the only one of Hinsdale.
I don't think, I know Doug and Evan have been trying to keep track. I've asked them to keep track, and I don't know that anybody has made, but over the years, it's been interesting to me. At times when issues have come before this board, people have come up and said, well, I don't care what the neighbors do. This is Burr Ridge, and we want to do it our way. And then when it suits them, they want to come up and say, I want to know what the neighbors are doing. Well, both of those positions are understandable, but I don't know that how the neighbors vote should drive our decisions here. But I do respect everybody's opinions. Did you want to say something, Tony?
Sure. So, yeah, I really don't care much. I think Willowbrook opted in and Willow Springs opted in. So, but the other thing is that if we opt out, we can always opt in later if that comes to a choice.
I don't think so.
Yes.
Yeah, so
I mean, yeah, but
Let me
by
explain
then, the
that.
sales are going to be in other locations, and it's going to be an awful
I don't
tough
know. I
area.
don't think that would be an issue.
So, just some background facts, and we are trying to figure this out. It isn't the clearest piece of legislation. It seems clear that those with a medical license already automatically can have a recreational license if they request. And one more location,
Secondary, yes.
so they can get their location and they can get another location that doesn't have to be anywhere near where they are. The initial number is going to be, there's 55.
55 to 72, I think.
Right, we've heard a range of 55 to 72 licenses in the first round, so to speak. And it's my understanding there's at least 43 or so medical dispensaries already, so more than half of those licenses are likely to be grabbed right away. And even if we were to opt in and people want to bring a dispensary here, that doesn't mean it'll happen because they have to meet all kinds of criteria and it might be chosen for a different location. So the fact that we opt in doesn't necessarily mean we'll even have one. If we opt out, okay, and we have to do one or the other, if we opt out, it's my understanding, and I did ask Mike on this not an hour before the meeting because I was still unclear about it in my research. If we opt out, we can opt back in. And in fact, we can opt back in with very narrow zoning requirements that even more narrow than we could pass right now. So, do I have that about right?
They can be equally as narrow over time. What you can prohibit now or limit now, limit the number, limit the location, you can come back and revisit that if you prohibit its use or these businesses by January 1st. You always have the right to change your zoning ordinances with regard to prohibited or permitted or special uses.
So the bottom line is if we opt out, we can still opt in if, for example, the community felt over time, it wasn't such a danger, it wasn't such a branding issue, it wasn't such things, and you know, opinions could change back the other way. So it could happen. That's just some background.
So, in moving forward with that, and I believe Burridge is a special place. The rules are similar marijuana to liquor in the sense that you cannot consume the marijuana in the store that you purchase it from. You cannot consume marijuana in the vehicle that you're transporting marijuana from to your home. And then you cannot consume it outside. You have to do it in the confines of your home. There are no liquor stores in Burridge. I don't want to put a marijuana store in Burridge either. I'm confident. I've talked to many residents that are not for this. They don't believe it's consistent with our brand. And I'm prepared to make a motion for staff to prepare an ordinance to opt out of marijuana sales in Burridge.
Second, I will second.
I'm a stickler for following the rules. The Open Meetings Act says you can't vote on something that's a binding vote.
Not on the agenda.
Until it's on the agenda. You can take a note count here, and I've heard two people essentially speak in favor of prohibiting it. If two more trustees or the village president were to weigh in on that, then you would have the ability to have staff take the next step. So if people want to make their opinions known, you can do that. That doesn't count as a binding vote, because you're going to have to come back in and pass a zoning ordinance prohibiting this in all of your zoning districts. So if that's the way you go. If you approve it, you're going to have to pass a zoning ordinance designating which zones these businesses are allowed in.
So, yes.
Thank you. I have no moral or health objections, and I think the state of Illinois has already passed it. But I do respect the residents and the wishes of the residents, and I'm here to represent the residents. I recognize what's here tonight. I counted 8 people spoke against it, and 4 people spoke for it. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt of being residents. Their parents still live here. I think some of them live here. So, you know, I think it would be good to hear, make sure everybody's had their word on this, and that we've heard from some experts. I was interested in hearing from the state's attorney or any other experts that might be appropriate. So I don't know if the October 21st meeting is appropriate or not, but I just want to make sure we get a full, clear hearing on this issue before we decide. I'm personally haven't made up my mind yet, and I really just want to make sure we hear from enough residents. It sounds like there's mostly opposed to it, but I'd like to make sure they get a fair hearing.
The October 21st meeting, if noticed as a public meeting with an agenda, could be a decisive meeting, right?
Yes, you could take a vote at that meeting if you publish an agenda to direct staff.
I have spoken to State's Attorney Berlin. He's got a pretty full calendar normally. I don't think anybody would be surprised that he's not in favor of the legalization of recreational marijuana. But I will see what his availability might be to come and speak for himself. I don't know anybody in law enforcement that I've spoken to that's in favor of legalization, but as one person did point out, a legislature, and we may have been the first state legislature that voted for it. I believe, I certainly am confident to say that in Colorado, and I believe also in California and Oregon, just like they did in Canada, that went legal, I think, yesterday. They all had referenda, and the residents and the people spoke. Our legislature decided this issue for us. So those of you that feel strongly about it, remember that. You know, they've already voted, but you might want to speak up during election time. So I think the best course right now might be to have a public town hall meeting, good old democracy, on October 21st, at which time we can make it a public meeting with an agenda, and the board can vote.
Well, if there's going to be 3 village board members there, you're going to have to post it as a public meeting and have an agenda, so you might as well.
Yeah, I think all the trustees want to participate. So, respecting that you said you would be willing to make a motion, and maybe wait until October 21st, it's only a week away, and I think we should invite people. I'll try to see if the state's attorney will come. I think you know his position, and I don't think that's going to change between now and the 21st. But we can set it up formally, and again, it still have to go to the Plan Commission, because we've been told the safest route is to have a clear indication on our zoning laws that is not permitted before January 1st, if that is the will of the board. So if there's consensus on this issue, we'll just pass it for now and have a public meeting, town hall forum, next Monday, October 21st.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
In the town hall meeting, do the residents get a vote or?
A vote? We could take a straw poll, yeah, we could certainly do that, and many times at town hall meetings that's done. I don't see why we couldn't do that.
Okay.
And I'd like to get a feel and try to make it as comprehensive as possible, and maybe this board, hopefully this board room would be too small. So I'd like to, I'll talk to Doug about trying to find a place, obviously one of the hotels probably, and have a conference room and have a public meeting. Yes. Okay. I might take you up on that. I might take you up on that. So if I can get a motion, do we even need a motion? We don't even need a motion, right? There's consensus at the board level that we have a town hall meeting on October 21st at a place to be determined, big enough hopefully to handle this. And we'll get, you all are good at social media, we'll try to get it out and try to invite your friends and get people to come.
A special board meeting.
Special board meeting. One question, let's hear from trustee Francis.
Yes, it's very important that the residents know of this meeting, so we have to use any and all means at our disposal to ensure that the residents are informed of the time, place, and location, and also the agenda. I would also ask that our own chief of police has the opportunity to speak on this topic at that meeting, that he is on the agenda as well. And certainly afford every resident the opportunity to let us know their opinion on this very important topic.
I agree.
Thank you.
Someone got a question?
Is the question to the public one?
Can you come on up so everybody can hear it? And by the way, was it anybody, I was having a hard time hearing anybody from the podium. So let's check that
Maybe the mic
sound
is
system.
not the
I
best.
don't know. It's
We were
very
right
difficult.
here, we were right here.
Mary Bradley from 121 Surrey Lane. Is the question to the public, do we opt in or do we opt out? Or what's the question you're going to put to the public?
Both. We want to hear the pros and the cons, and obviously, the economics is something that's being discussed, and the branding and what's right and wrong for Burr Ridge. All of that should be out there and discussed at this meeting. And the question is, should we opt in or opt out? We should take a position one way or the other.
And then the economics. I mean, I read some materials before the Economic Development Committee, and I mean, now I'm hearing tonight $450,000 to $500,000, but I also heard figures as low as $50,000 a year. You know, the economics are hard, and I understand we don't have enough information, but somehow we've got to get a clear picture of how realistic $500,000. I mean, I just calculated $500,000 at 4.5%. I think we get you can get 3% plus 1.5. I forget our sales tax, but divided by, that's $10 million in sales. That's $31,000 a day. I don't get it.
So, Catherine, you cited an article that said every dollar of revenue has a $4 cost. if you wouldn't mind sending me that article, I'd like to see it. And then the gentlemen that, those of you that live in Burr Ridge and those of you who are our neighbors and are interested in bringing this to Burr Ridge, I'd certainly encourage you to give the economics some support. One of the problems with many of these types of meetings is that people make statements about what they know or what things are supposed to be without actually having the backup. And this is important enough where I'd encourage people to, if you're going to take a position, please have the backup and what you're relying on so that the board is getting real knowledge and real foundation. So with that, we'll move on in the meeting, but we will have a town hall meeting on October 21st, probably at 7 p.m. at a place to be determined.
A week from today.
A week from tonight. Okay? Thank you. All right, that takes us to, boy, now we're going to have nobody here now, see?
You can stay and listen to the rest of the meeting. You don't have to go.
Yeah. Okay. So this gets us to item 9, public comment. Is there any other public comment? In this part of the meeting, you can is reserved for any public comment on anything, even if it's not on the agenda. Okay, I don't see anybody, so no public comment tonight. Reports and communications from village officials, are there any? Yes.
Question. So I'm not sure the procedure or policy, but at previous times when trustees were absent, they were required to state the reasons for their absence. I don't believe that was required this time, so which is it? Are they required to state the reason for their absence, or is that not the policy?
It's whatever you guys want. I know Trustee Snyder told me he was on business outside of state, but that he was able to call in, and that's what he did tonight. I didn't ask him to say that, but Joe, you still on? He was indicating he was having a hard time hearing.
So what, in the future, what is the policy?
The policy
Is my question.
does provide for that, yes, sir.
It's for what?
It does provide for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Joe, you still on? Maybe not. He did text me at one point saying his signal was going in and out. That's it. But he did talk to me beforehand, and I will represent for the record that he told me he was in California on business. Okay. Are there any reports and communications from village officials? All right. I have a couple. Assuming I can find my notes. The village is hosting a coat drive to benefit the One Warm Coat organization. Coats can be deposited in the boxes at either the village hall or the police department until October 25th. Since 1992, One Warm Coat has given away over 5 million coats. So clean out your closets, please, and get rid of those old coats and donate them to a good cause. Also, this coming Saturday, October 19, is the Fall Festival of Fun at the Village Center from 2 to 4 p.m. Family-friendly events, trick-or-treating, hay rides, and you're all encouraged to wear costumes if you come. And finally, mobile driver services units at King Revere House on Friday, October 25th, will be present there from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. for all residents. By the way, I did attend a new wing of King Revere being opened up. It was renovated. Very impressive. It's one of the reasons why they are one of the leading centers, I'm sure, in the country. Very impressive senior living quarters that they've renovated. With that, can I get a motion to adjourn for a town hall meeting on October 21st, 2019 at 7 p.m.
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.